for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has council had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes of August 20th? If so, I'll ask for a motion.
Make a motion to accept minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I abstain. Sorry.
Any changes to this evening's agenda? With no changes, I'll ask for a motion to approve the set agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Guests in open forum. Seeing no one for guests in open forum, we'll move into committee reports. Golf Committee.
Golf Committee, we met last week. Everything seems to be going well over there. The rounds played to date are up 1,065 over last year at this time. So that is a great number. Our overall facility is up 184,000. So just with March being a good, you know what I mean? It was opened up a little bit earlier this year too, so that has helped. Just want to say concert at the Creek went really well this last Friday. So if you guys made it out, it was a really fun time. And we still have a handful of golf events coming up as far as the month of September is pretty busy in that. So
Like tournaments.
tournaments, yeah. So that's it.
Police Management.
Police Management, we met on August 26th at 0700. We're dedicated. So we, police is in the process of backgrounding a potential candidate right now, so fingers crossed, hoping for that. We had a building update, the building project update. Stats were just down very slightly from 2023. And we closed the meeting off with our item 8G for tonight, so we'll not steal the thunder from that.
Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance met on August 27th. We reviewed the standard financials and everything was looking good. BCC memberships are still climbing. We talked quite a bit about the benefit renewal just for insurance for city staff. That'll be coming to council later. And we talked about past due invoices, which are pretty steady, and there were 8 shutoffs and only 2 remain shut off.
Fire Board. I will do it. We approved some equipment to be installed for the training purposes. It's an anchor point so they can practice rappelling. We accepted the donation from Quick Trip, and then with the help of RedPath, we sought guidance on making sure that our payroll stubs could be sent automatically, as well as ACH for bill pay. And then we also discussed in a separate meeting with RedPath some CIP help in making sure that everything is allocated correctly on there and how to best position for the future. Planning Commission.
Planning Commission, we met on Monday, the 26th as well. Pretty quick meeting. We just had a discussion on fence height. And this is specifically to when you have a corner lot, it's considered to have 2 front lots. And so if somebody wants to put a fence on, say, what would be, most of us would consider the side of the house, that's still considered a front. So the front yard setbacks still apply to that in terms of the fence height and things like that. So we had some discussion on that. It was one of the items we had teed up as part of the code rewrite, and since we get a lot of the fence permits in the spring, we figured, well, we're through that. We'll just, we're not gonna, when we know we're redoing it, we don't wanna go through and do everything, but since this issue came up, we are gonna tackle it before that. So we will have a public hearing at the September meeting in regards to that, so.
Okay.
That was the only item.
How about Joint Planning?
Joint Planning met also on August 27th. We heard a variance application, a rezoning application, and a conditional use permit application.
EDA.
EDA regular meeting was on August 12th. We had a update from Northspan, so they were the vendor that is doing the business incubator. So they gave I think it was a 30% update, kind of where they're at. Also just, that was the main item, and then otherwise we just had, some updates to the EDA, just from staff on different projects and their ongoing statuses.
All right. EDA special meeting?
Special meeting was, last Thursday, and we, did interviews for we have the open position. We had a EDA member resign, a couple months ago, and so we are interviewing for that position. And we had 2 applicants, and that, we did make a recommendation. That item is in our consent agenda item for tonight.
Okay. Any others that we missed? All right. Administrator and staff reports. Annexation by ordinance. Mr. Sanders.
I took the shorter route this time. Thank you, Mayor Council. Tonight, we have a annexation by ordinance before you. If you recall at the last meeting, the council did approve a waiver of the 90-day required objection period, and of the stating that they had no objections. Since that time, the Clear Lake Town Board met that same week, and they did approve waiving the 90 days as well. That's attached in the packet. You can see that resolution there where they did approve of that. The one request that is tackled in the annexation by ordinance, and this is an ordinance that is required by statute, so it's not just a resolution, it actually is an ordinance that needs to be passed, was related to taxes. The request from Clear Lake Town Board was to pay for this, the city would give them the 2.5 years of taxes based on what's currently being assessed for the property, and that total cash payment would be in the amount of $702.98. So it's fairly small. Either way, the city's gonna have the tax back in the future, so that is also something that's considered under the statutory regulations and making sure that the tax situation is resolved between both parties. So if you pass the ordinance this evening, that is agreeing to that request from the Clear Lake Town Board. The municipal boundary adjustment unit also has all of this information, so if you approve tonight, this would go to them in the morning with the signed version of that. They would then finalize everything they need to on there and then issue the official order from the state. There's a couple other clerical things that staff will take care of as far as filing it with the Secretary of State and other items. With that, we are seeking for a motion and a second approving ordinance 287 second series, which would annex the 120.084 acres currently located in Clear Lake Township into the city of Becker, and would also seek for a motion and a second approving ordinance 287 second series summary for publishing. And with that, I will answer any questions.
So out of curiosity, the $720, do we pay that all just at once, or is that something we actually break up?
It's just a lump sum, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 287 second series, annexing land located in Clear Lake Township, pursuant to the statute listed.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Now I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 287 second series summary for publication.
I'll second that also.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Elk Wind Creek, second edition development agreement, Mr. Sanders.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. Back in earlier this summer, spring, the plat for Elk Wind Creek Second Edition was approved. This is a 14-unit plat. It's actually 21 total for the preliminary plat. This is all part of the original plan for the entire development. These 14 lots in particular are 2 outlots. They're currently outlots. There will be 14 lots made out of these 2 outlots. The roads for this development are already in, the stubs are already in, the lights are already in, so curb work is already in. In fact, the lobelia was just redone this year. That's how long it's been since the original went in. So the development agreement was a requirement of the plat, but it's a fairly straightforward based on the standard template. It is with the city attorney for review, just to make sure there's nothing being missed, and the city engineer. So if you approve resolution 2473, it would allow them to make any adjustments necessary to the agreement. If there were changes to be made, the development agreement does address that. It says if there are additional improvements beyond what was originally proposed, then certain things would kick in within the agreement and they would make an addendum. But in this case, we really don't foresee that that's gonna be an issue, so this would cover what's needed for at least this edition. Future editions would require a more substantial agreement, just if they were to develop further on that property, just based on roads that would have to go in and infrastructure. But in this case, it's fairly minimal. Parkland dedication was required and has been paid. That is mentioned in the developer's agreement as well. So with that, seeking for a motion in a second, adopting resolution 2473, which would approve the development agreement with Elkland Creek second and allow the attorney and engineer to make adjustments as necessary. And I'll answer any questions.
Kind of adjustments would they need to make? That would be outside of the scope of, like, where's the threshold between?
Most of the time, it's fairly minimal. If there were language adjustments they need to make, not substantial edits, if they were major edits where it's like, hey, we really want this to be included as far as like amounts for securities or things like that, that would likely have to come back. But in this case, I just don't foresee any of that being there. So it may mostly language adjustments that'll be needed to the sections.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2473 approving the development agreement for Elkwind Creek second edition.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
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 Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
The adoption of 2025 preliminary taxes. Mr. Ebensteiner.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. There we go, it worked. All right, thank you. So tonight, I'm here to present on the adoption of the 2025 preliminary levies. So a little bit of background. So earlier this spring, staff did start in on the 2025 budget process. We've had several meetings that have led up to this moment, both council meetings as well as exec sessions. The state does request that all jurisdictions with tax authority certify proposed levies by September 30th. These levies are used in preparing parcel-specific notices of proposed property taxes for each parcel of property for taxes payable 2025. So I have a short presentation and then have a resolution that would adopt those preliminary levies. All right, so starting out with the overall summary. So proposing an increase from 2024 to 2025 overall, increasing 0.98% from 10,148,066 to 10,247,399. As you can see, the general fund levy overall decreased 1.3%. So as a reminder, we did, there was legislation passed this last session related to transition aid, energy transition aid. So we are in the process of working with the state to better understand that statute and what sort of aid we will receive in 2025. The state does not certify that amount until May of 2025. So we're still working with the state to understand how that calculation works as our tax capacity changes. But based on some preliminary understanding and preliminary numbers, we did include $250,000 as a decrease in the general fund levy. Therefore, we would get that aid from the state to supplement that levy. And as we transition, as it mentions, it's to transition us as our tax capacity is changing. The EDA levy that we're proposing a decrease of 5.71%. So that we do base on total estimated market value. It's a percentage of total estimated. At 233, we feel comfortable. Really worked closely with Jacob on his budget. I think the max right now we could levy is right around 241,000, so we're comfortable that the 233 should fit into that bucket. And then on the other levy side, as you're familiar with, we do not have a operating levy for Pebble Creek. The debt service levy increasing from 1,049,000 up to 1.5 million. So that does include the 2024A projections. We're currently working through that issuance, and that's a conservative estimate. We feel the levy for that additional debt service should be there or below, but we should know those numbers soon. And then on the capital levy side, which I'll discuss in more detail on the next slide, decreased 9.38% down to 2.731 million. We are a service-oriented business, so some of the significant assumptions that are included in the operating levies, we did include a 3.5% general wage increase, as well as an 8% healthcare benefit increase. So still working through the benefit renewal at this point over this next month, as we've just got some of the renewal information. And I think that's it for that slide. As I mentioned, here's a summary of the 2025 capital levies. So the capital levy at 2.731 million. Really here, do a deep dive and a detailed analysis of each of those different buckets, looking at a 5 to 10 year plan, working closely with our budget contributors on what are the needs of our facilities, of our streets, of all the different pieces. So with that, rather than levying for specific projects where we'd have a lot of dips and valleys and mountains of levy, we do look at that long range plan and really try to even that out, which allows us to even out that tax rate over time. As a reminder, you'll see some changes. Overall we decreased to 9%. You will see some changes within the different allocations. We had levied within the admin EDA for our equity contribution for the facility. So as we will not levy for that in 2025, some of that is reallocated. A portion of that will cover the debt service for the 2024A bonds, as well as we did look at that long range strategy, supplemented a little bit back into streets, as well as community center in Pebble Creek, looking at what some of those long-term needs are for each of those facilities and different projects there. So looking at the tax rates, so really, impacts of wages, healthcare costs, capital replacement needs, all that's incorporated into the levies. The city's local tax rate calculated to be 48.966, increasing from 45.998. Really, this is just a snapshot. We took the best information we have at this point to calculate some of these preliminary rates. And then on the EDA side, 1.144 down from 1.152. Each year we do have some of those larger property owners, primarily NSP, who do appeal their valuation, so they are state assessed, so the state does complete their assessments. We get preliminary values early August. They did appeal once again this year. Normally, I guess last year we had adopted a preliminary levy a little later because we didn't get values until a little later. They did settle in August, so we did get some revised figures from the state. So Northern States Power did settle. They were down 11.8%. That was primarily related to the decommissioning of Unit 2 at 12/31/23. So that was just their portion. So Northern States Power is made up of a combination of, I think, 7 PIDs. So looking at their value change from pay 24 to pay 25 was down 11.8%. So with the revised figures, that's where we got to the 48.966, up from the 45.988. And then similar on the EDA side, decreasing slightly. So looking at a tax capacity, current estimates is an overall decrease of 5% down to 20,450,000. So that's our current snapshot. The county will be running some kind of final preliminary reports this week. So we'll have some revised figures there, and then as they continue through the year, we really won't have final numbers until December, when they finish a lot of the homesteads and all the different pieces come into there. But this is a estimate at this time, gives us a snapshot of some of the impacts. So with this chart, I'm a visual person, so this gives you a kind of a summary of how to calculate the tax rate. So total taxes to be generated, as you can see there, increase of 0.98%, up to $10,247,398. Local tax capacity decreasing right around 5%. So take the taxes to be generated divided by the capacity, gets us to an overall tax capacity rate of 50.110. Here's a year-over-year trend comparison. So this looks at tax capacity in kind of the yellowish color, tax levy in the blue, and then the combined total tax rates. That takes the city and the EDA tax rate together. So as you can see, from 21 up to 24, our tax capacity had increased. And with that, our tax rate had increased, really right in that same trend. We've been looking closely at our long-term plan. With that 2025 tax capacity decrease, we have planned for that. We weren't sure what exactly the percentage would be, but it's in line with what we have discussed with our prior long-term plans. So you can see over time, yes, our tax capacity rate has increased with some of those modest increases in the levy, but as expected. But nice to get a trend analysis to kind of see where we've come over the last 5 years. So then taking a look at what these tax rate means to property owners. So starting on the residential side, the biggest change here is the homestead market value exclusion. So there has been questions over the last couple of years, housing prices are increasing rapidly, but there's been no adjustment to that homestead exclusion. So there was legislation that was adopted. So as you can see there, so for 24, there was a maximum exclusion of 30,400. So it started at 76,000 up to 413,800. For 2025, there'll be a total available of 38,000. So it'll start at 40% of 95,000, and then it'll phase out for values over 517,200. So that will impact residential homeowners and give them more exclusion for their value. So the chart I've included there, if we focused on, say, the $300,000 value, the homestead exclusion in 2024 was $10,240. They'll have with no value change. I guess just to pause there, I did ask a lot of questions with the county and kind of looked at the city in general. Residential values did stay very, very flat. They were happy with where their ratios were coming in at. So the chart here I have proposed with no market value change. So with the $300,000 home, homestead value exclusion going from $10,240, increasing to $19,550. So that has an impact on that tax capacity. 2024 would be $2,898. 2025, $2,805. So a decreased capacity. So the tax changed $1,366, increasing to $1,406. So that change in the taxes would be directly related to just our small uptick in our tax capacity rate. So a change of $40 or 2.9% in that home's overall tax.
Oh, so this is demonstrating with the, okay, so this has the, our tax rate applied to the 2025 number.
Yep, yep, so it's applying that new preliminary tax rate. And if all things being equal, if there wasn't that change in homestead exclusion, then the percentage change would be right around that 6%, which is it's our rate change in our tax capacity rate. But with that homestead exclusion increasing, that impacts those valued homes. So in the end, I mean, we had a decrease in the tax capacity through NSP, but also this would just decrease our overall tax capacity on the residential side. They make up a smaller piece of the pie, but it would impact the values and the capacity to be taxed within that pie chart.
This was necessary. This number hadn't moved in a long time, and I know that.
Yeah, it had been a long, long time as values continue to increase with no change on that side. I think even with some of our meetings prior years, we had some good questions from residents like, what can we do? And it seems like the legislation did listen up and did make some changes. So with that, here just looking at distribution, how are those funds used? So when we receive those property tax payments, here is just an example of an average, $350,000 value residence, annual taxes of $1,679, so a monthly payment of $140. As you can see, EDA would be right around a little over $3. Debt service levy, $20.78. Capital improvement levy for all those line items we had discussed, $37.28. And then the general fund operating levy, which covers the general fund, public safety, public works, and the community center, would be $78.63 on a monthly basis. And then just touching on the commercial industrial side, so here with no market value change, there would be that 6.3% increase. That would be based off of just the increase in the rate. So on like the $5 million market value, taxes would go up $2,938 or $245 per month with no value change. If there was a 5% value change, you'd see it increase $5,444 or $454 per month. So part of that is as you see that large commercial user that makes up a large piece of the pie, over 60%, as their value shrinks, that those taxes are then, having to be made up on the other commercial industrial as well as the residential. So that's where you see some of that shift with that transition. And with that, that's where this chart is trying to, or is kind of showing where here you have the residential, kind of the other commercial, and then utility, excuse me. So on the residential side, you see the increase of a $450,000 home, no value change, increasing $102 or $9 per month from 24 to 25. On the commercial, $7.5 million value, increasing $4,417 or $368 per month. And then on the utility, so state assessed, so this is all those state assessed properties, NSP and Southern Municipal. Value of $700 million in 2024, decreasing 8.1%, would decrease their tax liability by $158,725. But really the focus of this slide or this chart is if you look at below each of the combined taxes, you'll see the percent of the overall levy. So our overall levy of $10.1 million, this is a percentage that this payment makes up of that total. So as you can see on the utility state assessed property, units 1, 2, and 3 in 23 had made up almost 69%, 24 made up 65, 25 had made up right around 63%. So as that trends down, you'll see some of the uptick in some of the other overall. But as we look at our long-term plan, and we'll continue to plan for that, we have the transition aid, we have sufficient reserves, so we'll continue to manage that as we transition away from those larger valued assets. But just wanted to present that as an impact as well, give you a snapshot. So with that, I can answer any questions. Otherwise, next steps would be approval of the resolution, setting the preliminary levies for the EDA and the city, and then also setting the public hearing for truth and taxation, December 3rd, 2024 at 6 p.m.
We'll make a motion to approve resolution 2474, setting the proposed property tax levies for 2025 for the city of Booker.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Acceptance of the Minnesota Post Board audit results. Chief Balloon.
Evening, Mayor and Council. That's a tough act to follow. So as you know, every 3 to 5 years, the Minnesota Post Board comes in and does an audit of the police department. This is required under state statute. Actually, it's always been every 3. I think they're switching it to every 5 now. So, but what they look for is compliance with state rules and regulations identified by the Post Board, peace officer standards and training. So on August 13th, they made a physical visit here after sending them tons of documents ahead of time related to training and policies and stuff like that. So we received a letter indicating that we passed our review or our audit from them, but it did indicate that there were 3 items that they typically look for, just so everybody's aware. They review the post-mandated policies to ensure they include the appropriate content, some of which is by law, but one of the requirements they added this year to stuff like that was we had to put all the mandated policies online now. So if people go to our website, they'll notice that we have a post-mandated policy area, so people can actually review our policies as required under statute. So we've got that there if people want to go and read policy. The second thing is to confirm all licensed peace officers have received the mandatory training as required under state statute. That is firearms training, use of force training, defensive tactics, bias, all the things that we go through every year. We're only required 48 credit hours every 3 years, believe it or not, but we'll typically be in excess of probably 125 hours per year of training. And lastly, they verify all police officers who are not exempt, meaning they may not be in a position where they're out driving a squad car, have or will receive training in emergency vehicle operations or pursuit driving. So that's every 5 years it's mandated, but obviously with how pursuits have been handled in the recent past here, they're keeping a very close eye on stuff like that as well. So again, we're excited to say that we passed the audit. This is like I've mentioned other people, this is the big audit that they do on police officers. We do other audits as well, but this is the one that affects my license, believe it or not. So if they find things that aren't where they're supposed to be, I could actually have my license suspended as the police chief. So thankfully that didn't happen, but things are looking very good. The auditor was pretty impressed with how things have gone here this last audit period, and obviously it's looking good moving into the future. So one of the things they do require is that, or ask, is that we have this formal discussion where we talk about this or answer any questions, and then an opportunity, again, to ask the questions, but then a motion and a second to approve the results of the Minnesota Post Board audit on the City of Becker Police Department. So with that, I'd answer any questions you might have.
No questions.
I'll make a motion to accept the results of the audit completed by the MN Post Board on the Becker Police Department.
I'll second it.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Recycling Board, JPA dissolution. Mr. LaRude.
Mayor and City Council in 1999, Becker, Big Lake, Elk River, and Zimmerman entered into a joint powers agreement to establish what was called the Sherburne County Municipal Recycling Board. And its purpose was to expand the yard waste recycling opportunities among the cities and purchase equipment to that end. It appears that the only purchase that was done was a skid steer, and the City of Zimmerman still possesses it, but there's not been a meeting of this group for a number of years, and by a number, maybe 20. And so, as Mark was reviewing insurance this year, this came up, and so he reached out to the other 4 cities and met with their Public Works Department. The sentiment among the Public Works folks is that this JPA is no longer needed now that the county is supporting the dump sites in the various cities. And then I reached out to the administrators, and they too, where this group can be dissolved. So we reached out to the city attorney. They sent the attached memo, or the included memo with the RCA, detailing how it can be dissolved. And it starts with one city making a resolution or a motion to dissolve the JPA. So if the council approves that tonight, There'll be a recycling board, meeting will be held. They will make a recommendation back to each of the member cities. And then hopefully, before the end of the year, this JPA will be dissolved. One of the things that group will have to figure out is how to dispose of that skid steer, or keep it, or one city buy the rest out. So that'll really be the only order of business, I think, for that board. So with that, staff would request that the council adopt resolution 2472, resolution of petition for dissolution of the Sherburne County Municipal Recycling Board. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So who actually owns the skid steer? Is it the
It is
city
titled in the city of Zimmerman, yes, that's correct.
So do they buy it out at current value? I mean, it's a 25-year-old skid
I
steer.
assume so, or it may have nominal value too. I think the board will determine that.
Alright, well, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2472, for a resolution for the petition for the dissolution of the Sherburne County Municipal Recycling Board.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Archery range change order, Mr. LaRude.
Mayor Bertram, city council members, when the plans and specifications for the archery range were prepared, they did not include fascia on either the shooting range or any of the target stands. And we had the pre-construction meeting with all the contractors. We went through the plans, and at that time, they recommended the fascia be installed for a couple of reasons. Number one, it'll certainly will improve the appearance, but will also protect the framing members on all of those building structures. And so the time has come so staff was generally in support of that, and so the contractor recently sent us a change order for that. To add the fascia work is an additional $8,170. And if approved, that would then exhaust all of the CARES funding that we were required to just pay or have allocated by the end of this year. And before you move on with a motion or not a motion, that was a good time to just review what we spent CARES money on. So the city received $541,000 in CARES funding. $69,000 of that went for premium pay wages during COVID. So the remaining $472,000 the city used for the community park pavilion, the playground at Community Park, poured in place surface, sidewalk and accessibility improvements around that area, senior center improvements, and the archery range. So I think that the city really got council should be proud of what they chose to spend the money on there. So with that, I would request that the council approve a motion second to approve the addition of the fascia work, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
I'll make a motion for the approval of the fascia work in the amount of $81.70.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Police Chief Retirement, Ms. Mortensen.
What if we don't make a motion?
So on Monday, August 26th, Chief Balloon submitted his letter of resignation. He's been employed with the city for 18 years. And requesting that you look at regretfully accepting his resignation this evening, and then authorizing advertising for the position. And then we also, staff recommend at this time that the Personnel Committee create the timeline for the recruitment and present at the next council meeting. But before you do that, I would like to acknowledge some of the items that he put in his resignation letter. He's said, "I believe the time has come for my journey as a police officer to finally come to an end." He has been a police officer for 32 years and 8 months. He was appointed Chief of Police for the city of Becker in September of 2006. He goes on to say, "When I was hired in Becker, I promised to change the department culture and how it conducted businesses and worked with the community. I have worked tirelessly to advance technology, credibility, and the professionalism professionalism of this department as we conduct day-to-day business. The staff of the police department has remained committed and dedicated to our community. I can't thank them enough for their hard work, commitment, and efforts over the years. He goes on to say, I've also had the privilege to work closely with our elected officials and city administration. Personally, I want to thank Mayor Tracy Bertram for her continued support and guidance during her time on the city council. I have been offered police chief positions in 2 other larger communities over the years, but Mayor Bertram's words of wisdom and support are what have kept me here. She has been a phenomenal mayor to work with. I'm also thankful for the support of the other city council members, city department heads, and city administration. You have always made my job easier with the honest discussions and the support you have offered me and the police department. Lastly, as all retirees say they look forward to more time with their families, I too wish the same. Words cannot express what their love and support have meant to me over the years, especially during some difficult times. Thank you for your honor and privilege to serve such a great community. I leave with deep gratitude as it has been an amazing journey and career serving as law enforcement officer and leader. So that was what was submitted to the city. If anyone has any questions on the process or anything, I can address those.
No, it's been an honor to work with such a great individual as well. He's done a fantastic job with the city.
I agree.
Make a motion to not accept the resignation.
And I'm not gonna motion.
I'll withdraw my motion, sorry.
I was wondering if we could do,
Who's gonna do it? Not it.
well, it wouldn't do any good.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation from Chief Balloon.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. There's a second motion too.
Yep.
Motion to begin advertising for the position of police chief.
A second.
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any discussion on that? If not, those in favor may state aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Consent agenda, Mr. LaRue.
Mayor Bertram, City Council members, items for approval on tonight's consent agenda include approve the revised hiring and termination report, adopt resolution 24-75 appointing Paige Crumey to the EDA board vacancy to a term that expires December 31st, 2025. Accept a summary of the City Hall technology equipment costs and accept a quote from Russell Security Resources in the amount of $148,457 for door and access controls for the police department and City Hall. Approve Quadient mailing machine lease. Accept tobacco compliance check report from Sherburne County. All city licensed businesses pass the annual check. Approve partial pay request number 12 in the amount of $14,662.30 to R.L. Larson Excavating for the 2023 Business Park Pump Station Improvement Project. And approve partial pay request number 3 in the amount of $783,662.20 to OMG Midwest for the 2024 Street Improvement Project. And I will be happy to answer any questions.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Payment of the bills.
Motion to pay the bills?
Second.
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Anniversary announcements for the month of September. Troy Dawson is our maintenance coordinator at the community center, and he's celebrating his first year with us. Rhonda Klein is the kitchen supervisor over at the restaurant at the golf course. She's celebrating 5 years. Chief Brent Balloon is celebrating 18 years with us. Lieutenant Christopher Lindblom is celebrating 11 years with us. Sarah Schaefer is the administrative assistant over at Public Works, and she's celebrating 6 years with us. In the part-time category, we have Charles DeGuerrero. He is a groundskeeper over at the golf course, and he is celebrating 13 years with us. So congratulations to all those individuals. Does council have anything else for the betterment of Becker? The only thing I have is, I have heard a lot of misconceptions about the police department construction taking place, and I just encourage everyone to please go and visit the city's website. All of the details are on there, as well as boards are posted at the community center, here at City Hall. Please feel free to browse and ask your questions amongst those. I know that there's also a tab updated with the updates, so that you can be up to speed on exactly what's happening with those. Anything else? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Robin. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 5:46 PM.